left it.
Oh, I don't have anything.
Okay, here we go.
It has started.
Now you're talking.
We right?
Yep,
Going.
over to you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Hopefully we can edit this. Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Hurtbox podcast series or interview series, whatever you want to call it. And we really don't know what we're doing, but we're going to give this a go and see where it goes. So, look, a really quick background as to why we're doing this. Look, we just want to share some really cool stories about some really cool people that live in our region, but also more broadly and bring in some more special guests as this progresses. So it's really about sharing those stories. There is a really rich history, and we want to share it with people who've been around for a long time, but also newcomers to the sport so that people understand the background and just looking to share that. So Paul's my name. We've got Simon as well, and our special guest tonight, Olivia Gollan, that we'll get to very, very quickly. Very quick background. Simon and I have known each other for 25 years. Simon sold me my first bike, which I still own, the Haro Vector, if anyone's after a good bike. Look, as you can tell, guys, very relaxed format, couple of beers, just a general chat with some great people. So that's what it's all about. I'm not going to rabbit on about myself. I'll leave that to Simon. But it's really about the guests and their story. So, look, I couldn't start this with anyone else. This person, Liv, that everyone knows, is a bloody legend and has been a great friend of mine, a really close friend of mine for years. And, you know, I hate to think how many miles we've shared on a Saturday morning at 7:30 or 6:30 from the race course, and more recently on the mountain bike. And, you know, not just about riding bikes, but about sharing stories about life and stuff, and probably get a bit deep sometimes. But, you know, that's the basis of a good friendship. So I couldn't start it with a better person, not arguably, the best cyclist that the Hunter region's ever produced. You know, the list of achievements, we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to firstly say a huge thank you to Olivia for coming on board. She is one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. There's so many people who don't know what this lady has achieved, and that's really the purpose of tonight. And I want to start with a really quick story, and Olivia can correct me if I'm wrong, but the background to this is that Olivia turns up to the annual Boxing Day ride, starts at the race course and heads down to Martinsville. Most people know that ride. And a guy, I think he turns up and he says to Olivia, "Oh, are you sure you're on the right ride?" And, you know, this is for that guy. We're trying to teach that guy about who these people are. And Olivia told me about the look on that guy's face when she went past him up the hill at Martinsville. So it's just a quick little story, and I'll stop interrupting. We've got a heap of stories to get through. So, Liv, thank you again. And, you know, we first met at the forum, at the swim squad, at the Kyle Hughes swim squad. Back in the days, Olivia was a triathlete when she first started. I'll point that out. And, look, my first recollection of Olivia, probably not the best swimmer, no offense. But gutsy, absolutely gutsy and determined, never give in. And that's what stuck with me. And then, look, what seemed overnight, Olivia blossomed into a full-time cyclist, a European cyclist, a professional cyclist.
Do you reckon she's going to tell us any of this, or are you just going to keep rabbiting
I'm just going to keep going.
Come on. Let's go to Olivia.
What we're going to start with is Olivia's background. So, Liv, if you could tell us, you know, how you got into the sport, how you discovered it, and where it went from there. I'm exhausted.
Oh, look, I think probably I was a mate of mine from Maitland, Paula Wickham, who was my best friend from school, and it was really, I think she's still quite involved in Maitland Triathlon Club, and she was doing a triathlon, and she said, "Liv, do you want to do a triathlon with me?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so I've got this great story about going to Morpeth Triathlon, and we trained or what we thought we were really training, and Morpeth Triathlon was going to be our first race, and So somebody said we would go much faster if we had wetsuits. So I borrowed a couple of wetsuits off my cousins who were much bigger than both of us. And so in the swim, we nearly drowned, and we came out of the water last and second last, and my dad was standing on the banks of the river, and he said, "That's great, girls, last and second last." And then we couldn't get out of these wetsuits that were too big for us. And then the other tip that someone had given me was to pump my tyres up really hard. And so I'd taken this old road bike that I dusted off out of some shed somewhere to the servo, and I just pumped them up as hard as I can, and someone just before the race started said to me, "You better look at that tyre," and the tube was actually poking out the side of the tyre like before the race. Okay. Anyway, we came last and second last, and I guess I spent many years then trying to improve, including forum swim squads, and like my swim was hopeless. And my run wasn't much better, but after a while, it was a good friend of mine was friends with Greg Borer, and he actually sold me my first bike and encouraged me to come to the gang and have a couple of races. And not long after that, he was actually my first coach. So if anyone doesn't know who Greg is, he is Margaret Hemsley's husband, and is a bit of a he used to work at Hadley's and was a bit of a cycling identity in Newcastle for a long time. And he's actually a multiple Olympian as a mechanic, and really good guy. And so Margie was on the national team at the time, and so he really knew how to coach someone at that level. And he recognised that I had the physical talent to do something. And so I was really fortunate at that point, because he knew exactly the kinds of things that I should be doing, like on the bike and the races that I should be doing, and even just little tips like you've got to learn to ride the rollers, and you've got to, make sure that you can go around corners and properly. And because a lot of people who come late to the sport, which I did come late to the sport, have an engine, like big engine sometimes, but don't always have the skills and the and that kind of. So Bora was he talked to me about tactics and those kinds of things too, which was really helpful.
Do you remember your first race at the gang? You got any memories of that?
I do. So I remember it was Friday night, and it was F grade, and there were 2 kids in the race, and I came third with the kids. But then 2 weeks later, I think I won and got that little envelope of cash. It was like
$15.
Yeah. Pay for your entry.
And then only a few weeks after that, I went over, and I actually had a really bad crash. And I mean, touch wood, it's still the only bone that I've ever broken from a bike crash. And and it was a couple of A graders who, just total nafty, just went up there inside in our sprint, and they were kind of just cooling down and riding through the finish, and they didn't realise we were coming, and I rode up the inside rather than the outside, and then they moved over, and I came down and broke my thumb, and that was the first time I realised that you could hit the deck and take a lot of skid off, and it's kind of
so Liv, when you started racing, did you really got the bug for it? You really thought, hey, this is something special. This is something that I really want to pursue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I'd ever really had that experience in my life where I kind of came to something that I thought, oh, this is just so addictive and and I just started to feel so great from being fit and meeting all of these really great people, I think, too. I think the most beautiful thing about a bike is that it's the saying that it's the only sport where you can sit down and have something to eat and have a long chat with your mate and still be kind of exercising. And I really found that it was really quite meditative as well, right? Really early on for me, it was quite healing, I guess, like just this long, slow kilometers or really hard kilometers, or that, that beautiful feeling that you get from that fantastic endorphin rush. And as well as the fact that it was a big ego boost because I was good at it.
Winning $10.
Yeah, I got that $12, and and look, I'll always say that I was very fortunate that I had really good people along the way, and so Greg introduced me to Mick Chapman quite early as well, and Mick was just instrumental in toughening me up, I think, which I think he was renowned for doing that, but he just really knew how to achieve at that level, and we had a fantastic friendship, and I'm eternally grateful to have had him and Fran in my life, and the hours of kind of work that he put in with me, and I would put him and Rossi Hayder in that kind of category of being people who just, those coaches who just commit hours and hours of their life, like years of their life, for not any money. It's really just for the love of it. And coaches get, a lot of coaches get paid a lot now, and there's kind of a career in it, but at that time there really wasn't, and I certainly didn't have any money to kind of be throwing around either. But it was this kind of this love of this beautiful thing that is, exactly what's in Paul's background there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I remember meeting Mick Chapman for the first time, and he came across as quite gruff and a bit dismissive, but he was one of the softest, kindest guys once you got to know him. That's just, despite that gruff exterior.
Yeah. Look, that's exactly right, Simon. Like, I think that his kindness and his he had a lot of softness, and he's a beautiful man, really great guy.
Yeah, it's he's had such a huge impact on the sport, and so did Ross as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's happened to Paul. I think we've lost him. I think he's gotten upset by the broadcast. We weren't. I hear he's coming back. We weren't talking about him enough. So
what happened?
This will certainly be on the highlights reel of the show. Did you want to change the top again, champ? You're on mute.
I know he's talking without his mic. You're on mute. How many
Are we
beers
still
did you have?
recording?
Yeah, we are. I'm going to keep this in because it'll be exciting for viewers.
I was getting a bit bored. And
That's
I wanted to mix it up.
Look,
sorry
we're
about
going
that.
to keep going because we're going to be pushing on time. But what I might do is I want to throw to this photo, Liv, that you've sent through prior to us meeting. Did you want to just have a quick chat to this? So you've come through from Kooragang, and here you find yourself a couple of years later, the front of the pack.
So look, this is a picture, and look, it's one of my favourite pictures of me. Like, I've got all these pictures of me on my walls that I just look at all the time, and
Sure.
I actually had to go a long way to find this afternoon when Paul asked me to send photos through. But this is a particular special photo for me because it is at Worlds in 2005, and it was my first year as a pro. Like, I spent a few years with the national team in Europe, and I spent my Olympic year with the national team. And it was 2005 when Amy Gillett was killed, who was a really good friend of mine, and I think it was a really difficult year. Like, it was a really it was a difficult year to step out and be to step out on my own without the kind of security of the national team around me, and then to have that tragedy happen. Was really hard, but I was in really good form for this race. So this is Worlds in Madrid in 2005, and it was relatively early in the race, and I attacked off the front, and I didn't get very far, but the photo's great, and I always look at this photo and that determined look that I've got on my face. Absolutely. It just reminds me of I guess the adversity of that year and the grief of that year and the kind of the closeness of the pro peloton at that point. Working through that terrible tragedy and the closeness of the Australians as well. That Anoni Wood came third in that race, and we had, we'd spent a lot of time together as a group, and it wasn't easy. So that was a good day. It was a beautiful day in the sun. It was a great bike race, and I looked fit. I think I looked relatively fit and young.
Yeah. That day.
I don't look like a nearly 50-year-old woman,
That day probably changed your life and many lives for a long time, Liv. I was only listening to Katie Brown on the Detour podcast yesterday or this morning, so it's had a huge impact. We kind of skipped a couple of steps. There was a bit of a national title in 2003. To me, was that your first breakthrough? Big breakthrough?
Look, yeah, definitely, Bill. I think that that year, 2003, I had a really fantastic year that year. I podiumed on a couple of World Cups, Amstel Gold, a World Cup in Canada as well. I came fifth at Flèche Wallonne. I won a tour called Trophy d'Or in France and came sixth at the Giro d'Italia. And I really had this great year, but it started with that national title. And look, I think that was a turning point for me, the national title, and the biggest part of that turning point was really the national coach at the time, James Victor. Not long, I think it was just after that he said to me, Liv, you can go to the Olympics. And to that point, I just thought that was like a pipe dream, And I think just knowing that, someone at that level believed in me, it did actually just change my mindset a bit. And so started, and when you start winning things on that international scale, you have to kind of back yourself a bit. You can't you can't have those doubts, because then you don't win.
Can you just talk? That's an incredible achievement to have done what you did. If there was an equivalent male rider, the salaries and the product endorsement would be incredible. What huge product endorsement opportunities and salaries and signing $1 million contracts. What did you get that year? It was huge volumes of.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was a $250 a month stipend from the AIS. It was pretty good, I thought.
That'd keep you in tubes.
Kept me in tubes. I did a bit of casual teaching at the end of that year, Look, I mean, it was that kind of era too, prior to social media and prior to even digital cameras weren't very common. And so kind of being able to promote yourself on that stage where you could actually, we were just on the edge of it. And I think that a lot of the, I think the sport for women has changed a little bit because of that. I think their salaries still don't come near the men's salaries or the endorsements that the men get, but they are getting there, and they're doing a really good job of promoting the sport. And but I guess to answer your question, Simon, the monetary rewards for what we were doing, what for racing as a woman were really, non-existent. Even the top, ranked number 1 in the world was like just scraping a living. That they might be able to pay a mortgage each week or something, but not even really,
I'm just got to jump in there, Liv. You've brushed over the fact that second in the Giro d'Italia twice.
Top 10 in the Giro d'Italia.
Sorry, top 10. I got it wrong. Second.
We should change this to the Paul Amidy podcast.
Yeah, but what I want to focus on though is that it's very easy to just say that, but they're huge achievements, and that's what we really want to focus on here, to make people aware that that's not like coming second at Kooragang. It's it's a huge achievement, and it's worth just sort of pausing on that, I think. And I'd love to go through so many of your results, and there really are. And I guess I'd encourage people to go, and it's not that hard to Google your name and research those results. 6 road world championships, 3 in the TT, the Olympics, which we really need to get into, and then those other one-day results. And it was hard to follow you as a spectator and as a friend. It was really hard to follow you. But I guess, was there ever that moment when you're in these races where you sort of pinch yourself and go, wow, I'm battling with the best in the world?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, but then not, because you just, once you're on that treadmill, you kind of end up in this bubble. And I guess that was one of the big things when I stopped racing. Coming out of that bubble was difficult, just being a normal person again. But I think that those beautiful races in Europe that are so Flesch and Flanders and Amstel Gold and Milan San Remo, and racing those races, I sometimes look at the television coverage of them now and just think, wow, that was so cool. But at the time,
you were doing the same courses,
same courses, and often, not always, Simon, we would just do the last kind of 130K or the last 140K of the men's race. And for those races, we will nearly always finish about an hour before the men. And so it was pretty cool experience, because you'd often finish with, enormous crowds, and
wow.
And it was great, And my first race in Europe was Milan San Remo, and I don't think I really realized what it was even, I think I was so naive that I was just like a rabbit in the headlights going, whoa. And actually Greg Bora was at that race, and he said, Liv, you'll either win or you'll crash. And first hairpin, first hairpin crash. I'd never seen a hairpin in my life, probably.
This is coming off the Poggio?
The Cipressa, actually, the first one.
Wow.
Yeah. So look, I think that I kind of forget about those achievements now, because I look at my career as a holistic thing, not just those races. And you have good years and you have bad years, and you have good months and bad months, and it just becomes life then.
How did you cope when in the bad or the quiet or the down moments, whether it was changing rooms, travel, or just not having the form?
Look, I don't think I coped very well, Simon. I don't think I was very good at kind of just muscling my way through that. And it's hard, because your whole life is bike riding. So when you're not racing well and your whole life is there, and you don't, and at that time, the internet was always sketchy. It was always hard to get online. There's no Netflix. There's limited English books, and so you're kind of bored as well a lot of the time. And so I was always kind of writing stories, and I used to write for Cycling News a lot, and I wrote for Ride magazine, and I wrote for Pro Cycling magazine as well. And so I'd try and kind of advocate, and then I got involved with I was the elected representative to the UCI, internationally, for women. And that meant that I kind of had something that I could get my teeth into and feel like I was being useful, because that sometimes you don't, if you're racing on a team and you're not able to contribute as much as you think you should be able to, then you just get down on yourself. But it swings in roundabouts, and then the next month you'll be firing again, and so it's all here. Most of it's here.
I hate to condense that. It was 7 years as a pro in Europe. We hate to condense that into, a couple of minutes. But I wanted to ask the highlight, the biggest race. Was it the Olympics? And if we can explore that, or was it something else?
Look, the Olympics is always something that people assume it is going to be the highlight, and on so many levels it was, because you're always an Olympian once you've been to the Olympics, and it wow. It just kind of tags you. You're tagged with that identity that it is an ego boost, but it's also people listen to you, and and they take you seriously, I guess. And look, the Olympics was amazing, but I'm not a nationalist. Like I wasn't there like racing for my country. I didn't feel that way. I felt like I was amongst a group of really amazing women who had actually gone without a lot of stuff, and a lot of women from really poor backgrounds who kind of had fought their way. Some of them from Eastern European countries who it was kind of their only way forward was to get a pro cycling contract and come and live in Italy, and they were amazing athletes. And it just felt like on that start line in Athens, you're with all of these really remarkable and different people from all around the world. And so that was the best thing about the Olympics, I think. And I was telling, my favourite story from the Olympics is that, it was Sarah and Anoni and I in the Australian team, and we were pretty committed to winning that gold medal. And my dad, like our families were all there, but my dad and Sarah's dad ended up on the corner with 200 metres to go, drinking in the, Athenian sun all afternoon. And they were pissed, like really drunk. And they came around the corner, Sarah and came around the corner with 200 metres to go, and Sarah won the race. And my dad goes, "You've got to get down there. You've got to go and give her a hug." And so he legs Sarah's dad over the fence, and Sarah's dad falls on his head and splits his head open, and just is just like pouring with blood, but doesn't feel it, like just goes, oh. And, we're still partying at 3 a.m. the next day, and he's still got the T-shirt with the blood all over it. It was pretty cool. But
that's awesome. That's really cool.
Look, I think the best race for me, and I and I've said this, I have said this to other people, is that at the end of 2004, we won the World Cup, and only won the World Cup as a national team. And Amy Gillett was in that team, and we raced the last race in Nuremberg and in Germany, and it was pissing down rain, like it was really pouring with rain and really dangerous all over cobbles, and we kind of had this team. I think it was there on the day. Margie Hemsley was there. Lorraine Graham was in the team. Nat Bates was on the team. Anoni and I and Amy, and Anoni had to get at least third to win the World Cup, and we just kind of raced our hearts out in the rain, and we were all on the same bikes that we'd ridden at the bikes that we'd ridden at the Olympics, and it was just a great day. And she won. She got third in the race, and she won it. And I had this life-size poster that Trek had made up of the team after the race, and I had it until recently, and then it was kind of under my bed and gathering dust, and I rang Anoni and gave it to her as a bit of a gift.
Awesome.
Because I thought she might have had a garage or something where she could put it up. Yeah.
But just while we're on this point about the nature of cycling, where an individual really relies on their team members, what's it like, in the higher stage of the Olympic Games to support someone getting that Olympic gold, and obviously led to huge changes to Sarah's life. But what's it like being a part of that?
Oh, look, I think someone was us. I was talking about this the other day, and I was actually Whitey, Greg White.
Whitey. Yeah, Greg Whitey.
Yeah. And he was just kind of saying, that's just amazing. And I often do think about it, and I think it just seemed so like it was a given that the three of us were going to work for that medal. And look, we all had incredible form going into that race, and we'd all been winning races all year, and so we were definitely one of the favourite teams to win the race, and I think that I think that you don't question it when you're a bike rider, and I think the Olympics is always a little bit different, is because you've only got a small team, particularly for the women. You only have 3 in the team, so you have to play it like a poker game. You can't ride it like it's the Tour de France and have all your eggs in one basket. And so, I think we won that race because all 3 of us were prepared to support that person who put themselves in the right position, and to be like Sarah played that tactical game that day so brilliantly, and raced so well. If anyone's ever watched the race, then she really it's a phenomenal kind of, the last couple of laps were really cool, and it's really, and like to think about that time of being in that back alley in Athens with a gold medal that we were kind of sharing around.
That's gold.
Yeah,
that's priceless. I guess moving towards the end, Liv, and then without going into it too much, I think it was difficult for you to transition back to normal life.
Yeah.
And just wanted to ask about that really quickly before we ask you what you're up to now.
Do you reckon? I reckon we jump to what you're up to now, because I think there's enough material here for a second. We'll come back to you, I reckon. Olivia, I don't want to rush through the transition. I reckon we come back to this and we just do a close out now, because I think there's enough material for us to do another 23 to 25 minutes. I think we're aiming for that sort of time frame just because people's attention span won't go the full distance. But I'd love to come back to you for a part 2 if that's all right.
Part 2, yeah. Good.
So just go. Let's just do it.
I love talking about myself. I'm just like.
Well, you're doing all right.
You never talk about yourself.
I mean, it's largely been 3/4 of Paul Amidy and about a quarter of you, and I think I've said 2 words.
You don't like that because it's not about you.
I do like it to be about me mostly.
You're very good looking, Simon.
Thanks, mate. You're not a bad looking chap yourself. Liv, we've got a couple of minutes, but just, why don't you throw open what you're up to now? And I think we'll definitely come back and do a part 2 with you for sure, if that's all right. Yeah,
sure. Look, at the moment I'm teaching in a senior high school. I'm an English teacher, and I'm also a student coordinator in that same school, so look after the welfare of a big group of kids in the school. And I guess I do a fair bit of mountain biking now, not heaps, and I'm not very good at it.
I wish. It goes really well.
Excellent.
But I have really loved kind of doing something different and having a different focus, and but still on my bike,
Yeah.
So that's been great. And look, I love teaching, and I have such a lot of fun with the kids at school, and I'm really lucky because I work really close to home, and I've got I teach senior kids. It's you don't do any of the policing. You kind of, they're just lovely, beautiful young adolescents who are kind of mostly super polite and grateful for any help you give them. So I get a lot of energy from them, I guess. And
lovely.
Yeah, and I live with my beautiful partner in a beautiful part of the world, and I got married last year.
Congratulations.
My beautiful partner, Susan. So that was great.
Hey, Sue.
And yeah,
hey, Susan.
She's hiding upstairs. But yeah, I've got a good life. I've got a good life. Yeah.
That's awesome, mate. That's that's a fantastic story, and I've even learnt stuff tonight that I didn't know, and I'd like to think I have known most of your stories, and it's great to get that insight and more than just I went to the Olympics. It's a big deal, and those races that you did, they're a big deal, and it's great for you to share that experience of what that really means. So I want to say a huge thank you for sharing your time. I know that you don't like talking about yourself. You need to drink more alcohol, perhaps.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask one last question, and one of the other reasons behind this podcast series is about that weird enjoyment that we all get from hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called the Hurt Box podcast. Can you tell me what your experience, and you've been in the Hurt Box more than most of us, how do you find that experience? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Tell me about that mental game of when I was in it this morning. It's horrible. But
I
want you to tell us your
because you're
experience.
going to the toilet.
Sorry? Going down the driveway, yeah. Over to you, Liv.
Oh, look, I think it's the subsequent relief from the pain that's the beautiful bit, and in that relief from the pain is that chemical rush that we get with the endorphins and the increased blood flow that's going through our body. So it's a physical thing, but I also think that that the hurt and the physical pain of being on the bike for such a long time actually helps you to process so much in your head. And I think that just makes life a bit clearer.
Yeah.
And I think that you can also talk things out with people when you're on the bike that you can't do when you're doing other exercise. But you don't need to have somebody with you. It can just be you in your own head. And I think that the fresh air and the being somewhere beautiful, and the speed and the adrenaline rush and all of those things just come into play. But I do think with the pain, I don't necessarily, for me, it's not the actual, it's the relief of it once it's done, and it's that's where the rush is.
Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
I don't really like it that much, but I like it when it stops.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think we'll probably come back and do a part 2 because there's still a few more aspects that we'd like to explore. But a huge thank you, and
Massive
yeah,
thanks.
we'll do it again.
It's been fantastic.
We'll probably wrap up by saying, sorry, mate.
No, you go. It's fine.
No, you go. You keep talking.
No, it's not. It's nice to have the opportunity to kind of think about that stuff that was now approaching kind of 20 years ago. Not quite, but it's getting up there.
Look, and I'm sure you've done a lot more professional interviews than this, but it's a different perspective now. The nostalgia of looking back, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Like I love looking back now, even on the fun that I've had with cycling over the years, and it's amazing. So I can't imagine how awesome that must be for you. So thank you for sharing it, and
thanks, Liv.
we're going to do this again.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
And just if you're listening to this on YouTube, can you hit the subscribe button and the like button as well?
Okay.
We're putting this up on YouTube. Thanks, Liv. Okay. Thanks, Paul.
See you guys.
Thank you. I'll come back to you for part 2.
Okay. Cheers. Bye.
Are you stopping the recording now?